Hello aviators, welcome back to the Finer Points. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that made me realize Christoph was ready for his instrument check ride. And by the way, he passed, so congratulations to Christoph. But this flight that you're about to see was where I looked at him and thought, this dude's ready to go. Here's why. I'm Jason Miller, a full-time professional flight instructor. On the Finer Points channel, you can join me as I bring you tips and tricks that I've learned from 20 years on the flight line. When you look at the instrument pilot ACS, there really aren't that many tasks. There's about 8 or 9 tasks you have to learn. You have to learn how to comply with clearances. You'll have to learn how to fly the airplane by the instruments, do departures, fly en route, do arrivals, a couple different kinds of approaches, and you might circle, miss, or land. But other than maybe a holding pattern, that's about it, right? There's not that much to the instrument rating. So what is it that separates the men from the boys? Why is instrument flying so difficult? And a lot of you have heard me say that it's, that analogy of a juggler, right? Juggling 5 or 6, sometimes 7 balls. You could be the world's best juggler. But if someone throws you that 8th ball, or the one that's, 1 ball more than you can handle, the whole house of cards comes down. It's not just that you miss that 8th ball. Everything falls. It's called the saturation point. I joke with students, there's going to come a time when I ask what your name is and you tell me to stand by. That's completely saturated. So I find that a lot of instrument training is really about teaching pilots or giving pilots tools to help deal with the saturation that occurs in the single pilot IFR environment. So once you know all those tasks, how do I know that you're ready to go in the real world or ready for a check ride? And here I'm going to show you in this video 3 things that made me realize when I was flying with Christoph, who, by the way, passed his instrument check ride, got his instrument rating. But I think it was his long IFR cross country, the very first leg of that flight, where I looked at him and I thought, okay, this guy is totally ready to go. Apart from the skills. And in this video, I'm going to show you what those things are that I noticed. And if you're headed for a check ride, make sure you're including all these things in your flying. And if you're after your check ride, maybe these are things you'd like to incorporate for safety. So check it out. The first thing I noticed was his solid procedures. On this particular day, when I got to the airplane, he gave me a passenger briefing. As soon as he, read back the clearance and got his taxi briefing, he pulled out a diagram and briefed me on the route.
Okay, so basically it's going to be, so there are no hot spots. It's going to be the first taxiway and left turn towards the one to run up. Perfect.
He asked me if I wanted to check my brakes, which is actually required by the ACS.
Okay, my brakes are working. You want to test yours?
I do. I've got the flight controls.
You have the controls.
My brakes work. You've got the controls.
I have the controls.
You got the controls.
I have the controls.
He did taxi turns.
Looking for the heading. That they're matching and indicating properly. We're parallel to 30, so
good.
That looks about right. And slight turn to the left,
good.
It's
there you
indicating
go.
properly.
Yeah.
And slight turn to the right too.
Good, and you see the pink lines coming out.
The
okay, good,
indicator.
and the slap. Yeah.
After the run-up and after the run-up checklist, he did a before takeoff, a pre-takeoff briefing where he thought in front of the airplane.
Straight up departure, because we have to fly runway heading. Winds 240 at 4, so it's very slight quarter-range tailwind. Rotation speed is 55. If we don't get 240, 70%, roughly 70% of 55 by the second windsock, power to idle, and full brakes to abort the takeoff.
Okay.
If we get airborne and lose the engine under 1,000 feet, we'll land straight ahead of us.
Okay.
And above 1,000 feet, if we lose the engine, we'll turn back.
And this kept going throughout the flight. So, as he was flying, he's doing flow checks and checklists. Everything looked really, really good procedurally. These are all the procedures I mentioned in this video, the ones that Christoph did, but if you're looking for a complete list of the procedures I teach, they're in my iBook called Setting the Standard. The second thing I noticed was his hand flying skills were intact. And if you've been doing this as long as I have, it doesn't take too long to tell whether or not a pilot is going to have, a good feel for the flight controls or is going to ignore rudders and things like that. So the first clue I had was that he was positioning the flight controls for the effects of wind. Also here I noticed that he called out the runway headings.
1, 2.
But on the takeoff roll, he's using centerline discipline. So You know, he's fighting to get back to the center line even though we were slightly left. And watch this, as the airplane rotates and leaves the ground, he adds a little bit of right rudder to prevent the yaw from the left turning tendencies as the wheels leave the ground. Now this tells me that he's thinking aerodynamically in front of the airplane. And even so, like for the rest of the flight, when we're in the clouds, he's holding checklists and approach plates up so that he can see the primary flight display behind them and actually manage the flying. And he did a great job. He hand flew the whole flight. The last thing that I noticed that made me think, okay, this guy's ready to go, was, you know, thinking in front of the airplane methodically. So if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I teach the 5 T's for each next event. When I get to the next event, is there a turn, time, twist, throttle, or talk? And I teach the 5 A's to manage the big picture. So with time permitting, get the ATIS, the altimeter, the approach briefing, check your avionics, and make sure the airplane's ready to land. And even though we took vectors on this one, Christoph was thinking methodically in front of the airplane. On instrument flights, all the work happens at the beginning and at the end, so it's very easy to get lulled into complacency and kind of fall asleep during the cruise portion, and that did not happen to him.
100 feet of runway, so pretty long runway. Okay. Touchdown elevation 122. No remarks, DME is required.
Local Center, good morning, Omaha.
Okay, so basically the next waypoint is going to be Lucy. Okay, getting close to 3,000.
All these things add up to him being, you know, ready for the real world. Here he showed he could fly in the clouds. Also ready for a check ride. And the things that I noticed in his flying are very different than the skills, which obviously have to be there. But if you think all the skills are there and you're asking yourself, am I ready for an instrument check ride? Compare yourself to this type of performance and see if you're including all of these little details. And a huge thanks to the sponsors and to the patrons. If you're interested in supporting the Finer Points and seeing a almost full version of this flight here with Christoph, please come to patreon.com/learntfp. Also, I have a free gift for you, so if you come to my website, learnthefinerpoints.com, I would love to give you a free holiday gift. Thanks to you, the best fans on the internet, for watching this video. I'm Jason Miller, and until next time, be safe and fly your best.